The relationships you have with your coworkers are a big part of everyday life. Having fun and spending time together contribute to your well-being and motivation. But when things at work are difficult or unpleasant, this can have a lasting negative impact on your health. Psychological harassment exists in virtually all workplaces and can be the cause of a number of psychological and physical health concerns. In construction, 1 in 5 workers claim to have experienced psychological harassment. On a construction site, anyone can be subjected to harassment. Harassment often occurs between 2 workers of the same trade, or between workers of different trades. It can also be initiated by a superior, like your foreman or employer. And harassment can even be initiated by someone who isn't on the job site, such as the client, another employer, or a representative. But what exactly is harassment? To understand harassment, you need to know its legal definition. In Quebec, we refer to the Act respecting labor standards. And to better understand the definition of harassment, it helps to break it down. To begin with, there must be vexatious behavior. This means that the abuse of words, gestures, or behavior must be hurtful or disrespectful. And they must be repeated. They can be hostile, intentional, and meant to cause harm, but they can also simply be unwelcome, with no malicious intent, but hurtful all the same to the other person. They must affect a person's dignity or psychological or physical integrity, which means that they cause mental and physical health problems. And finally, the situation must result in a harmful work environment for the person subjected to harassment, meaning they no longer want to go to work because of the unhealthy situation. All of these conditions must be met in order to conclude that it's indeed harassment. However, the law states that a single serious incident can constitute psychological harassment if the harmful effect of the behavior is felt over time, meaning that a single serious act can be the same as several repeated minor acts. When the behavior is of a sexual nature, such as persistent sexual advances, jokes, comments, insults, or the sending of explicit images, it's sexual harassment. And according to the law, sexual harassment is a form of psychological harassment and must therefore meet the same criteria. Harassment also includes all forms of discrimination based on race, sex, religion, sexual orientation, age, and any of the grounds listed in Section 10 of the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. All employees are entitled to a healthy workplace that is free from psychological harassment. It's the law. The Act respecting labor standards states that it's up to employers to take the necessary steps to prevent harassment in their company. It's important to distinguish between the normal exercise of management rights and harassment. A supervisor, such as a foreman or an employer, is responsible for managing the company. They're in charge of the assignment of tasks, the quality of the work, the use of PPE, and absences. These things are all part of their right to manage. They have the right to tell employees what to do and to assess the quality of their work. Even if the employee disagrees, so long as there's no abuse or discrimination, it's not harassment. Working on several job sites at the same time, dealing with new coworkers or subcontractors, working under pressure and with tight deadlines, and working in very hot or very cold weather conditions can all be stressful. It might take some getting used to, but working under stressful conditions is not harassment. Some situations might seem like harassment, but they're not. A conflict in which both people are being disrespectful to each other is not necessarily harassment. But a conflict can lead to harassment. In the case of psychological harassment, there's an imbalance. One person is the aggressor and the other is the victim. When a supervisor is disrespectful, their position of authority makes it even easier for this imbalance to develop. When you're subjected to harassment, it can be difficult to do your job. You might also develop health problems, such as muscle pain, stomach aches, anxiety, and depression. The situation can escalate and lead to work absences and even disabilities. But harassment can affect more than the victim and the productivity of the organization. Abusive behavior is contagious. It can create an unhealthy work climate and have a long-lasting effect on the whole team. We all play a part in preventing harassment. Each employee, the team, the supervisor, and the employer. We must all ask ourselves whether our actions or words foster collaboration and well-being at work, or whether they instead create a stressful work climate. The company is legally required to adopt a policy for the prevention and handling of complaints, including sexual harassment. The policy must clearly state the expected behaviors, unacceptable behaviors, and their consequences. And all employees must have access to it. If needed, the APCHQ can provide one for you. Your employer must ensure that it's properly understood and remind everyone of it as required. Don't hesitate to ask questions if anything seems unclear. If you're experiencing a difficult situation at work, don't wait to find out if it's harassment before doing something about it. You should intervene as soon as possible. Where circumstances allow, approach the person and, in a respectful manner, clearly ask them to stop. If talking doesn't solve the problem, or if you need some advice, don't hesitate to ask your supervisor or employer for help. It's up to your employer to intervene and quickly put an end to the situation. If this doesn't resolve the situation, or if your employer is involved in the conflict, or for any other valid reason, you can file a complaint. You can file a complaint at any time with your union, or with labor standards. When you file a complaint, the Act prohibits all forms of reprisals against you. What's more, you can file a complaint up to 2 years after an incident of harassment. An initial investigation is conducted to determine whether or not the complaint is founded. It's conducted by a qualified person in a serious manner following a pre-established procedure, and it's all strictly confidential. During the investigation, meetings are held with the person making the complaint, the person facing the complaint, and any witnesses, so as to hear everyone's side of the story. Based on the findings of the investigation, either corrective measures will be taken to improve the work environment, or disciplinary action will be taken against the person responsible for the harassment. Your employer must ensure that the corrective measures are implemented and that the harassment doesn't reoccur. To sum up, if a difficult situation is making you unhappy, if you're witnessing behaviors that are creating an unhealthy work environment, or if you're the one engaging in disrespectful behavior in a given situation, do something about it as soon as possible. It's easy to trivialize inappropriate behavior, to think that time will fix things, or to excuse your own or other people's behavior because you're going through a difficult time, or simply because we are the way we are. These are all myths, and the situation is more likely to get out of hand if you don't act. Talk to the people involved about what's bothering you, or reach out to your employer to try to resolve the situation. Your employer has a duty to prevent harassment and take appropriate steps to put an end to it. But we're all responsible for helping maintain a healthy work environment.